Emotions. It's something that we all have, but are they good, bad, or indifferent? And how do we navigate them? Well, let's talk about that today. Well, hi, everybody. My name is BJ, and I'm one of the educators here at My Choice Education. Today, we get to talk about emotions. And the question was posed at the beginning of this video, are emotions good or bad? Are they positive, negative, and how do we navigate them? And kind of our response to that as an organization is they're neither. They're not really good or bad. We oftentimes want to associate emotions with a positive or a negative thing, and there are positive and negative emotions. But let's take anger, for example. Anger is what we would consider a negative emotion, right? It's not an emotion that we like to have, that we like to experience. But there are times when anger is appropriate, when it's quote unquote good, right? There's definitely times when it's inappropriate and it's bad. So how do we differentiate? How do we navigate an emotion that's a negative emotion but has a good quality, or maybe even a positive emotion at the wrong time? Well, it comes down to behavior. So take anger, right? If I'm angry and I use that anger to go lash out at somebody, and I go yell and scream and hoot and holler, and I make a big fuss and maybe lash out and hit somebody or throw something across the room, that's probably not the most healthy way to express that emotion. But if I use that emotion to fuel my drive to enact change, or I go and vet that emotion in a healthier way, like if I really need to hit something, I go to the gym and I hit a punching bag, or I scream into a pillow. There's healthy ways to navigate those emotions, right? Where we get in trouble is when we allow our emotions to totally control us. You see, it's not about our emotions being right or wrong, good or bad. You're allowed to feel. You're allowed to feel however you feel in the moment. But when we let our emotions control us, that's when we get into trouble. Consider going on a road trip. Right, so let's just say we're going to pack up our family and we're going to go to Disney World. Everyone wants to go to Disney World, right? So we're going to go to Disney World. So we load up the vehicle. We've got all our bags packed. We've got everything ready to go on the trip. And I'm driving, right? So we get in. We're all excited. And I start driving down the road. And I think to myself, you know what? I feel like taking a right turn. So I turn right and start driving down the road. And then I go a little bit and, I feel like taking a left turn. So I take a left turn. And now I'm bored. So I feel like going to go see a movie. So we go see a movie. And now I'm hungry. So we go get food. And now I'm going to go here. And I feel like going to do this. And I feel like doing that. And I feel like going. We're never going to make it to Disney World. We're never going to make it anywhere. In fact, if we're going to make it anywhere, it's going to be completely lost. Because the guy behind the wheel is a nutcase who's just following his feelings, and his feelings are all over the place depending on what time of day it is and how long he's been driving, right? But if instead I were to take a GPS or my phone and I punch in the address for Disney World, Florida, and I follow the directions, guess where I'm going to end up? I'm going to end up in Disney World because I've followed the path. And so when we kind of consider our futures and we're planning for the future, we're goal setting, this is kind of how we pull our emotions into check. Because here's the rub. Our emotions are going to betray us. We're not always going to feel like continuing on. Take someone who wants to be a doctor, right? So a high schooler who wants to be a doctor has to graduate high school, right? Probably be a decent part of their, have a decent GPA because they got to get into a good school, right? And then they got to go to their undergrad where they've got to do well. They've got to perform well so that whenever they graduate from their 4-year undergrad, they can go to medical school for another 4 years of schooling. And then there's internships, and then there's all of these different things that they have to continue to strive for and continuing education afterwards. It's a long process. It takes a lot of commitment. And knowing a few doctors and nurses myself, they've attested to the point where they've, at different times in their journey, did not feel like continuing on. They didn't feel like it was worth it. They would rather take a nap than study for another 12 hours. They would rather go hang out with their friends than put all this time into school, and their feelings got in the way. But they had to have this moment where they considered, where do I want to go? Is my goal so important to me that I'm going to choose it rather than my feelings? And we all have those things in front of us. Whatever your goals are, you have some place that you're going, whether it's a specific education, you have a specific career, or you just have goals for healthy families, you have goals for healthy relationships, you have goals in front of you. Your feelings are going to get in the way. So you have to stop and ask yourself, this decision that I'm about to make, is it going to help me get to my goals? Is it going to keep me stuck where I am and kind of hold me back? Or is it going to redirect me entirely? Because every choice that we make has that kind of potential to either propel us forward towards our goals, to keep us stuck in the mud, or to put us on a different path entirely. And while that may sometimes be needed, sometimes we need course corrections and we need to kind of reshift our goals, we have to be willing to consider, why am I making this choice? Am I just doing it because I feel like it? Or am I doing it because there's a legitimate reason for me to make this choice, because it's going to better myself, it's going to help push me forward, or it's going to put me on a different path entirely? And when it comes to relationships, the people that we have in our lives, especially those who are really close to us, this question has a huge weight, because the people in our lives that we allow to have the greatest influence have the greatest power to champion us, to push us forward, to make us better. They also have a power to be like an anchor, to keep us stuck right where we are. Or they can be agents of change. They can come into our lives and totally redirect us and put us on a completely different path. Again, sometimes okay, but if we're not thinking about it, if we're not considering it, if we're not choosing based on fact and not feeling, we can find ourselves making choices and getting lost on the way. Now, this kind of brings me to one more point that I want to address whenever it comes to feelings and emotions. Fact versus feelings. Fact and feelings are not best friends. They don't always line up. There are a lot of times when I feel a certain way, but the facts tell me to not feel that way, right? Especially in emotions, or in relationships, especially in relationships. There are certain relationships in my own personal life where I know that person is on my side, where they love me and they have my best interest in mind, but they do something, they say something that makes me feel otherwise, that makes me feel like that person may actually not be who I think they are. Maybe they don't have my best interest in mind, and I can start to question, and that throws the whole relationship into a spiral of doubt. When that happens, I have to stop for a second and I have to consider the source. I have to think about that person and go, wait, hold on a minute. Does this person really have my best interest in mind? Because if they do, then what just came out of their mouth, either I'm misconstruing, I'm maybe misinterpreting it, or maybe they just spoke, they made a mistake. Human error is a thing. Even in the closest relationships, we have to have that grace. We have to be able to stop and consider the source, consider what's being said, check our feelings against the facts that we know, and then make intentional choices. Not just fly by the seat of our pants, not just fly by the seat of our emotions, because when we do that, we might end up making situations worse. We might make choices that we later regret, that we realize that were based in falseness, that they weren't based in truth. So when it comes to your emotions, don't allow your emotions to control you. Make sure that you stop, consider the impact of the choices, consider your goals, consider the source of the emotions that you're feeling. Check your emotions against fact, and then choose with intention, not choosing with a whim.